Closed captioning of this program is made possible by the Fireman's Fund Foundation.
As the presidential campaigns turn bitter, Republicans and Democrats prepare for their party's national political conventions. We'll hear from Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa and former GOP Governor Pete Wilson. Undocumented immigrants between the ages of 15 and 31 began applying for temporary protection from deportation. And the San Francisco Ethics Commission met one last time to decide if Ross Mirkarimi should be removed as the city's sheriff. Coming up next. Good evening, I'm Belva Davis, and welcome to This Week in Northern California. Joining me tonight on our news panel are Rachel Gordon, City Hall reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, Mathai Kuravilla, staff writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, and Carla Marinucci, senior political writer also with the San Francisco Chronicle. We start tonight with two conversations. The first with Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, chairman of the Democratic National Convention, and then with former Governor Pete Wilson, who is heading California's delegation to the Republican National Convention. Earlier today, Carla Marinucci and I spoke with them from Los Angeles. Well, welcome and thank you, Mayor Villaraigosa, for joining us. The GOP will have had their say, and we're wondering what will be presented different coming from the Democratic Party.
Well, first of all, this will be the most accessible convention, Democrat or Republican, in history. They'll start off on Monday with a big event open to everyone, not just our delegates. We'll end off at the football stadium, the Bank of America Stadium there, 65,000 people, delegates and people from all over the South and all over the nation. It will be the most diverse convention in our history, and in fact, the most diverse convention ever. Very different from the Republican convention, which, as you know, historically is not very diverse, and will be mostly a lot of the rich and super rich that are funding their super PACs. I think what will be different about our convention is it will be an opportunity for us to share with people the stark choices they have in November.
Mayor,
voting for...
Mayor, when you talk about choices, I mean, I want to go to that because we know that Republicans here in California have issues, have problems with finances, with registration, but the Democrats here are challenged too. Independent voters growing the fastest here in California, party registration stagnant, a lot of talk about the youth vote falling off. How are you going to shore up the Democratic base here in California? How are you going to keep that base growing?
Well, first of all, I expect that in California, President Obama and Joe Biden will win overwhelmingly. Secondly, yes, we all have to do a lot of hard work to encourage young people to vote, to make sure that we get out our vote. But speaking about the convention, I think you'll see a very clear difference between our candidate who's focused on the middle class, who understands that we have to make investments in education, in workforce development, make the tough choices to get our economy back on track and our deficit down, but also cut taxes and close the tax loopholes that currently the super rich benefit from. So I think you'll see a very different convention from the Republicans in terms of our diversity, our openness, our accessibility, but also in terms of the issues.
Mayor, when you talk about diversity, a lot of people are looking straight at you. The spotlight is going to be on you at this convention. You've been written about in the past couple of weeks as potentially the first Latino president. You told Yahoo News you're not really interested in that job, but maybe governor. What about that? Is this going to be a great platform that's going to bring Antonio Villaraigosa to a lot of American voters, a lot of California voters?
I joked about being a mayor of Los Angeles. My focus is on my job. LA is safer than any time since the 1950s. We're doubling the size of our rail system in a short period of time. You see development downtown and in Hollywood. You see a different city. We're reforming our schools. We've doubled the number of schools that are scoring at 800 and above on the Academic Performance Index. We've reduced from 33% to 10% the number of failing schools. So I'm focused on this job and focused on getting President Obama elected this November.
We have to talk a minute about jobs and immigration. Both are very important. I assume they will be spoken about and talked about at this convention. What about the new registration of young people who hope to go on and get permanent citizenship in this country, who came here as young people, that just been launched this week? What do you think the future of that action by President Obama will bring?
Well, as you know, I just left a tenure of a year as president of the Conference of Mayors around the country. And for maybe the last 6 or 7 years, we've unanimously, Democrat and Republican, got behind comprehensive immigration reform, unanimously supported the DREAM Act. So I stand with the president in support of deferred action for the Dreamers. And what I've said, and I believe very strongly the vast majority of Americans agree, is that, you know, if we get these Dreamers, 1.5 million young people who've lived here most of their life and know no other country, if we take them from out of the dark and into the light, it'll add $1.5 trillion to the U.S. economy. If we help to make citizens and earn legalization for the 11 million undocumented, the number is in $3 to $4 trillion to the U.S. economy. So you're right. You fix immigration, and you're going to infuse our economy, create more jobs. We're going to incentivize these young people to get an education, to serve their country in the military, and they're going to pay back in dividends by contributing greater to the Social Security system, by ensuring that these young people are working hard for that American dream.
Well, we look forward to joining you in Charlotte for your convention and to hear more about jobs and immigration and all the other hot button issues that will be before you. Thank you so much, Mayor Villaraigosa.
Thank you for having me.
Governor Wilson, welcome to the show. Good of you to join us to talk about what's ahead for the Republicans at their convention in Tampa coming up. It looks like California's off to a great start. You have a star, Governor Chris Christie, who's going to be addressing your breakfast early, I guess, on in this. So what's the mood of the delegation?
Well, I think the mood is very upbeat. As you mentioned, we're going to have Governor Christie to kick things off for us. That guarantees an energetic beginning and a very, very well-spoken one. We're looking forward to him and looking forward to Tampa and what it will lead to.
Governor, you know, on the campaign trail, we have seen California take center stage. Both Governor Romney and Sarah Palin in the last week have talked about California, comparing it to Greece as an example of Democratic fiscal mismanagement. Give us your thoughts. Is it fair to compare California to a place that has 4 times the unemployment and 10 times the debt? Is it a fair Republican message to use California in this campaign?
Absolutely, because California, unfortunately, is suffering from self-inflicted wounds, much as are the countries of Southern Europe. And in terms of piling up debt, we haven't been at it as long, but we're doing our best, it seems, to catch up. So, yeah, it is a fair comparison, and one that's far more relevant, really, because California is 13% of the United States by almost whatever metric you choose to apply.
Doesn't that make it hard, though, to build a party in this state when the leadership is saying where you live is not a good place to be? I mean, the Republican Party has had some serious problems with drop-off in registration. You're at a new low point here. Wouldn't it be maybe helpful for somebody to like Californians?
Well, you know something, you cannot sell a bad product to anyone with any sense. And frankly, California is suffering from self-inflicted wounds. Is there a way out of it? Absolutely. I mean, when I came to office, I had to deal with a budget in which we were having to close a gap, a revenue gap, that was the euphemism, that was 1/3 of the entire state general fund. But part of the explanation for that gap was a business climate that was recognized nationwide as either indifferent or hostile to the creation of new jobs. California has that same reputation again, even though 8 years after I had to contend with it, California was at that point producing more jobs than New York, Pennsylvania, and Illinois combined. We were the premier export state, so it can be done, but it's not happening now.
Governor, you mentioned some of the challenges you faced. One of the challenges, I think, is a lot of people say, is the California Republican Party has gone too far to the right, gone too conservative, and that's why registration declining. You were a moderate, pro-choice. You created Healthy Families. Could a candidate like yourself today be nominated in the Republican Party or have success in the California Republican Party, do you think?
Yes, I do. I think that I proved it. And I also think that that is a much lesser issue today than it was then. If I could be an absolute dictator for 5 minutes and make irrevocable changes, I would amend the U.S. Constitution to provide that so-called social issues are the province of the states and not the federal government, and that the federal government should confine its activities to national security, to the economy, to all of the regulatory responsibilities that arise from that, international trade, and let the states deal with those problems that arise that are differently felt about in different states. I mean, each state has its own penal code. There are 50 different penal codes. I don't think there'd be 50 different decisions where there's essentially a choice. It's either yes or no.
For just one moment, because you as a governor took up an issue that is now center stage in national politics, and that is a whole issue of immigration. Have we grown to the point where the Republicans can offer Latino voters what they're looking for, a better immigration policy?
Well, what they should offer them is not pandering. Not saying that we will take you in because you happen to be a large voting populace. We should offer them, as we do, what we offer to all small businesses, to all entrepreneurs, to all people who share a concern about being able to put bread on the table. We can say to them that history proves that we have provided a far better jobs climate. And no one has yet devised a program that is quite the equal, a social program that is the equal of a job that brings not only a paycheck, but also the dignity of doing something useful each day.
Governor, you're saying the word that we must end upon. Thank you very, very much for sharing with us.
Thank you. I'll look forward to it as well. Nice to be on the show.
Okay. Well, both Carl and I will be covering the Republican National Convention in Tampa 2 weeks from today. Carla, though, how has the nomination, I guess that's it, of Paul Ryan as vice president energize the Republican Party, the conservative part of the party?
Well, Belva, you heard Governor Wilson say the party's excited. He did excite the base, and Mitt Romney needed that. In California, is that going to make a difference? No. It looks, with all the polls, California is overwhelmingly Democratic. Barack Obama is ahead in double digits here. But on fundraising, it's going to make a difference. Paul Ryan has been very good at that. On other areas, it could not make a positive difference. Congressional races. There are a lot of congressional races in California that are right on the margins. We've already seen today one of the GOP congressional candidates sign a pledge in front of seniors, that's Tony Strickland in the Southland, saying he would preserve Social Security and Medicare. That does seem to be an effort to reassure seniors that Paul Ryan is not going to change the agenda.
Well, that's Paul. Immigration, another hot issue. Immigration is one of the hottest issues in the presidential contest. Earlier this week, a new federal law went into effect, enabling more than 1 million undocumented immigrants between the ages of 15 and 31 to apply for temporary protection from deportation. We hear from one young woman who plans to apply.
My name is Karen. I'm 20 years old. I was born in Mexico, but I've never gone back, so all I know is here, California, San Francisco. I'm here at the Catholic Charities of San Francisco to see if I'm eligible to not be deported back. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I'm Karen.
Hi, Beltran.
Nice
to meet you. All right, wonderful. Let's get started. Are you excited?
Yeah.
When did you come to the U.S.?
I came to the U.S. when I was about 7 months.
Okay, 7 months, so you were a little baby. And your parents brought you?
Yeah, my parents.
Okay. When did you graduate from high school?
2010. I hope that I qualify. I just want to be able to work so I could support myself. I feel like I've been here so long that I belong to this country. I know there's a lot of people that hope for the same thing as me. We just want to be able to go to school and work legally and just be like any other American.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and good luck. I'll talk to you
next
later.
time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I thought you covered that story on Wednesday when they started accepting applications. What are there other qualifications? What are the qualifications for being able to apply even?
You have to be under 31. You have to have been brought here when you were under 16 years old. You have to have lived here for the past 5 years continuously. Either a high school degree, a GED, or be in college, or be in high school even, and to not have any felony convictions. The big part of this is you get not just a 2-year deferral of your deportation, whether you have a deportation order or not. It defers any such decision for 2 years, and then you also get a work permit. Now that's the biggest part, because you can get a social security number, a driver's license, you can qualify, you can apply for any professional license like nursing licenses. So it has a huge ripple effect on.
Matthias, what kind of assurances are there to these folks that the government's not going to use this information now or in 2 years to go after them and deport them or their family members? I mean, are there any insurances, or are you really just you're taking your chance at this?
Well, there's two things. One, you are taking your chances in different ways. In regards to whether your information will be shared, they're saying that the Customs and or Citizenship and Immigration Services will not share the information with Border Patrol or other enforcement figures unless it's a national security or a criminal issue. So there are some protections built in that way.
We know that this whole program came about because of an executive order by President Obama. But what happens if Mitt Romney is elected president in November? What's the impact potentially on these thousands of kids and this whole plan?
Even the most conservative immigration advocates that I've talked to, the ones who want very strict controls on immigration, they don't believe Mitt Romney would revoke these work permits and visas, these work permits and this temporary status for these immigrants. However, he could stop the program in 2 years. He could decide that he wouldn't renew the program. This program is very similar to another program called Temporary Protected Status. There are many other groups that have gotten this over the years, Cubans, Liberians, and as far as I know and people I've talked to, it's unheard of for somebody with temporary protected status to have that status revoked unless they did something else like a criminal act.
So this is open to all groups, not just Latinos, any immigrant who wants to apply?
Any immigrant who meets those age requirements and other requirements, it's open to everybody.
What was the mood? I mean, it must have been very exciting for these folks, right? What was the mood then when the first day of these applications that you could get them? I mean, was there elation? Was there fear? What was it like?
I think it's a little bit of both, because there's tremendous excitement, particularly that you can be legal, that you can. There was one man I talked to who was excited to be able to get a job. He felt like he'd been dependent on his parents and his sister to pay for tuition. There's people who are excited to just be able to drive a car. All these really basic things that people are just extremely excited about. At the same time, there is some anxiety because it is a people are worried about the presidential election and what that would mean. People do know that it's just a deferral of deportation for 2 years. It's not a path to legal status as the DREAM Act in Congress would have given them. So it's a temporary situation is the way it's being billed, but yet the excitement is so great just to get any semblance of legal status that many, many people are going to apply.
Who supports them? And I mean, through this process, and are we in court yet over this?
We're not in court as far as I know, but there is a concern that there's so much excitement and concern that people may act hastily that there's a lot of concern about fraudulent immigration attorneys. So a lot of nonprofits, churches, Catholic charities, all sorts of other groups are putting up forums and individual sessions for these immigrants to come and get help on their paperwork. So there's a huge movement right now, and for people to get free but accredited, recognized help.
When you mention the word free, that makes me turn to Rachel over here, because she has another chapter in the life of our sheriff.
I guess you could say free entertainment, right? I mean,
it's not entertainment. I'm not saying that, because these are very serious moments for Mayor Ross Miracomini.
Belva, this is something we've been following since January, and it was on Thursday night that the Independent Ethics Commission, it's a panel in San Francisco City Hall, said yes, indeed, that the mayor at least charges of official misconduct against Ross Miracomini have merit, that he did commit official misconduct. Not on all charges. They dumped a lot of them on things like witness dissuasion, using his power in the wrong way and things like that. But they said when it came to the sheriff grabbing his wife's arm hard enough to bruise it on New Year's Eve during an argument, and then later pleading guilty to the crime of misdemeanor false imprisonment under a plea bargain agreement, and where he was sentenced to serve 3 years probation, that act itself, it accounts for official misconduct. That's not the end of the story, though. Now this case goes to the Board of Supervisors, a very political body, as we know, and it's the Board of Supervisors which will take the recommendation of this panel and decide, is, number one, should they sustain the charge of official misconduct? And if that's so, should they kick him out of office? Should they remove him from office?
And Rachel, this goes to the board in late September, correct? Only a couple of weeks before the election.
Right.
What is the political implications of that when you have that kind of this kind of heat in this story?
I mean, it's tremendous, because we're seeing already that it has become a political case. The left of the left in San Francisco politics has rallied around Ross Miracomini, who used to be a member of the Board of Supervisors, former Green Party founder in California, turned Democrat, extremely liberal, progressives. We've got things like the National Lawyers Guild, the Harvey Milk Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender Democratic Club, the Labor Council. Others have said this is wrong. It's a political vendetta. This shouldn't happen. On the other hand, you've got a very well-connected domestic violence advocacy victims groups who are saying, look, we're paying serious attention to this. They're going to be under tremendous pressure. It's not an easy threshold. You need at least 9 of the 11 supervisors to actually remove an official for official misconduct. The last time that was successfully done was in the 1970s with an airport commissioner. The time before that was in 1932 with an elected public defender who was indicted for murder.
I was going to ask, what kinds of crimes have risen to the
yeah, I mean, we don't have a big thing, but it was the indictment for murder. The airport commissioner saying that he was a union official as well, and he crossed the line there. Eventually, on that one, when the airport's commissioner was removed, an appeals court said actually he should be reinstated to his post. He didn't commit official misconduct. It's something that hasn't. In fact, this process that we have today has never been tried before. There wasn't an ethics commission the last time these charges went forward.
Could this process have been avoided had the sheriff come out in the beginning and just said, sorry, I'm going to rehab, I'm going to whatever, you know, I truly want to get back to my family. If he had come out in the beginning with damage control.
Right. If you talk to crisis management specialists and political operatives, they said that's exactly what he should have done. At first, he said it's a private family matter. That got people angry. Then he fought it every step of the way. He finally decided, yes, I'm going to take responsibility and plead guilty to false imprisonment. Right. He had 3 other charges before. He probably could have saved himself that way politically. San Francisco is a very forgiving city, but when it becomes something like domestic violence, it's a third rail, and you have to conduct yourself correctly in order to get people behind you. But again, it's split in this city. There's not everyone saying that he's got to get out of office. There are a lot of people saying this is the politics at its worst.
How much of this is a precedent? I mean, is this because he committed domestic violence and he was a sheriff? And what kind of, so does anybody in elected office who commits a misdemeanor, now they come before the ethics
I mean, that's a really
commission,
good question. Actually, that it's the discretion of the mayor. Under the city charter, which was approved by voters, they gave the mayor exceptional powers to move forward with this. There are also checks and balances, though. It's not just the mayor can say, I don't like you, you're out. You have to go to the ethics commission in very transparent public hearings. Then it goes to the board of supervisors and other elected officials. The mayor decided on this case, because he's a top law enforcement official in San Francisco who was convicted, who admitted to a crime against another person and is serving probation. He's someone who works regularly with the probation department as well as oversees the city jails, that in that sense, he's not fit to serve as sheriff. But that's his opinion, and now we've got 11 people who have to make that determination too.
How many more weeks before we'll be back at this? A decision.
As Carla said, it will be probably sometime in October when the Board of Supervisors will make its decision.
Well, thank you, Rachel. In fact, thanks to all of you for being our guest here tonight. That is our program for tonight. Next week, we present Prison Break, a look at efforts to overhaul California's troubled criminal justice system. Remember to join us in 2 weeks for our broadcast from the Republican National Convention in Tampa, Florida, and the following week as we report from the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm Belva Davis. Good night.
Funding for coverage of the 2012 election campaign comes from the generous support of the following donors.